In this episode of the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast, we're going to be asking the question is when should an artist lock in with a producer? When is the best time for artists to really work with a singular producer or a producer on the majority of their project? We're going to really answer that question today. Check it out.
Arkatech Beatz.
What's up, everybody? It's the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. We are your hosts, platinum producers, Arkatech Beatz. I'm Juggernaut.
I am Mike Drama D.
And together we make the super duper group, Arkatech Beatz. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Every week we get together and we just talk about different music industry topics and situations to just help the independent artists, producers, musicians to navigate through this crazy music business. And in this episode today, we wanted to talk about when is the appropriate time for an artist to lock in with a producer. And I know people like say, what do you mean by locking in with a producer? Meaning to really try to develop a relationship with a singular producer to help to produce, or direct an artist's career or a project. So we wanted to kind of talk about that. And just please excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather, so if I sound a little nasally, that's what's happening right now. But Mike, let's get into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there's so many producers out there right now. There's so many producers, and there's so much music out there, and there's so many different ways of creating music, easy ways, and it's an artist really has to think about, okay, where they're trying to go with their music, and the sound that they're looking for, and the presentation they're going to make to the world. And a big part of that is, the producer, the person behind the scenes creating that backdrop for you. And, right now there's a lot of people just, selecting one producer here, one producer there, and just getting, their beats from various different people and putting it together. And, in some instances, you come off with a good album and things may sound good, but there's one thing that lacks the cohesiveness of an album. Locking in with a producer, that's pretty much, you got that main producer, that one producer who identifies your sound and where it should go. And they'll get with you, sit down with you, go to the studio and, create that music with you, and something like that is, I would say is a better situation. That's you're able to sit with your producer and you're able to give him information live on the spot for him to take that and turn it into something that represents right now, the moment that you're going through. Is something incredible and either magical that you need to have out there. So I would say locking in a producer, is beneficial than anything. It gives you that now vibe. It allows you to get with someone who you can talk to on the spot and create something right there for you on the spot that gets exactly what you're trying to do and where you're going.
I think people don't really understand how important it is to develop a sound. I think that has gotten lost in just the way things are now because everything is so micro content, everything is so quick as far as shorts and reels and the consumption of everything. I don't think people realize that when an artist has a particular sound, that it adds, it anchors their career. I don't think people really realize that it can really create a situation where you're not a flash in the pan and where you don't come and you just go because, when you develop your own particular and unique sound, you're not chasing the trend. And I think when we're locking in with a producer, the whole point of locking in with a producer is for you to develop a unique sound that you don't have to compete in the marketplace with other artists because you don't sound like the other artists.
Which happens too much now.
And that's what the problem is now. And because everybody sounds the same, everyone gets lost in the sauce. You know what I'm saying? That there's just no way for you to stand out. And this is really because I don't think that enough artists are deciding to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to lock in with, maybe producer A, B, and C, or maybe just producer A or producer B, and I'm going to try to develop a sound that's unique to me. And then now I can basically grow my sound as I grow as an artist. And then now your fans can go on that journey of your growth of your sound. But it's not unique to you anymore, because if I'm the producer that's basically in the beat marketplace, I sell it to everybody.
Right.
So
there's not enough experimenting. And I get it. I think people are controlling and trying to be safe. They're looking over there and seeing, okay, what's working, and they want to just cookie cutter copy that and emulate that. They say, okay, that record is playing in the club, that record is playing on the radio station. Let me make a record like that. And not for nothing, a lot of A&Rs, I've heard, requests that,
that tends to be the situation for us.
I received an email from an A&R asking, hey, can I get a record that sounds like this? And it's like, yeah, but all you're going to be is a copycat of that versus something new and fresh, and there's a lot of that going on.
I guess it's easier to reproduce what's working versus trying to create something new to work. And I guess in the realm of business, that's always been the situation where folks are always trying to rely on a duplicatable system to ensure a return on investment.
But that always has been the issue when it comes to the music business. It's always been, is it the music business or is it the business of music? What comes first, the actual music, the creativity, or the business? That's always been the fights. And, creatively, if you're not careful, you can lose out on being creative and making something that's new and fresh, for the sake of the business. And I think that's when we start to lose out. When you stop being creative, when you stop trying to do something else or step out the box and just try something fresh, I think that's why we are where we are, where everything just sounds the same. It's just business now alone. It ain't about music, it's about business.
And I feel you on that. It's a dreadful business model. Like, especially if you're just selling music. If you're not selling any other merch or anything else like that, like, it's a dreadful business model, and you have to basically sell a lot of music in order to make it break even, to make it make sense. So I can understand that the business model is not to take the risk that you would normally take, right? Because no one wants to take all of that, those resources and trying to put them into a project or an unknown artist and basically kind of cross their fingers and hope that it works. So basically the main thing to do is just to kind of go back to what can work, or basically do what you see working and reverse engineer that. To me, that's the easiest thing to do to make sure that you can ensure some type of return on investment.
But even the algorithm expects you to do that. When you're doing your promoting and your marketing, via social media, a lot of these programs and softwares, they're gonna ask you, what do you sound like? They need to pitch it in between 2 or 3 other artists that's in their similar genre. So that hurts as well.
It's funny you say that, because when you are creating these campaigns, it does require you to put in quote unquote keywords, similar interests, So, like you said, like if your music doesn't resemble a certain artist, it's like you can't create the right type of targeting,
Right.
or you're gonna just really spend a whole lot of money trying to figure out who your target market is, and that creates another layer of problems in itself. But when we kind of take two steps back and we're saying, okay, locking in with a producer, right? We're talking about locking in. We're talking about, why it's beneficial to do so. When should an artist do it? Um, let's kind of go through and playing the pros and the cons of kind of locking in versus just kind of doing it like how people are doing it now, which is, hey, I'm going on YouTube. Hey, I'm going on certain, beat marketplaces, and I'm just going to search for what sounds, you know, the hottest to me, or the hottest, or what sounds like whatever's out right now.
Well, Jug, if he just doing the YouTube, you know, grab a beat, you know, first of all, you don't know business wise what you're getting. You're gonna get a beat that you possibly can never really use, and it's funny if it starts to pick up some traction and it starts to, you know, get some eyes, or it starts to get a lot of views, or, even goes viral, somebody else may be reaping all the benefits from that. And you may not get anything from that at the end of the day, so it's a risk that is not really worth it in my opinion. I think if you're out there looking for beats and you stumble upon a producer, that you like their sound, like you get maybe 2 or 3 beats from them, and you notice that you like the way you're sounding with those 2 or 3 records, maybe it's time then now you reach out to that producer and say, hey, you know, I did 2 or 3 records with you. I'm interested in, doing, locking in with you. And if that producer likes the records that how it came out, I think that's a great thing. That's a step in the right direction. You lock in and you create more records together. Y'all physically get in the studio together and see what you guys could, formulate, come up with. And, if you think about some of the great records out there, that stand the test of time, where you got, Wu-Tang with RZA, and you have um, EPMD with Eric Sermon. You have like so many Mobb Deep with Havoc, even some of the future albums with Metro, Waka when he was with Southside. Like there's so many um projects that come together and sound good as a whole, because you have that either 1 or 2 producers, or that's overseeing it, making sure everything is sounding good collectively, everything makes sense, everything works, it fits a theme. you know I think that is the benefit of locking in with a producer.
I think like that's a good example when you name some of those folks, because when you think about the artists that start to move to different levels, it's always after they find that particular producer and sound. So like when you said, if it was the people who locked in with Metro, or the
Mhm.
people who may have locked in with Southside, or the people who may have locked in, just had them producing the majority of a project, whether it been Mike Will or whether it been, and that's just, the that tier of artist, that tier of producers. And then if we talk about, you know, the older generation of those guys that locked in, the Justice Leagues with the Rick Ross, and
Yeah.
the Cool and Dre's with this one, and
The Dillas, the Dr. Dre's, the Cool and Dre, like you said. Yeah.
you always see when the lock in occurs, that's when the best music is produced. Like there's just no denying that.
Yeah.
Like when the lock in occurs, the music sounds the best. Whether it's the Zaytoven and the Gucci, or when it's the lock in, it just goes where it goes. And because, back to our other point, once you lock in, you can develop a sound.
Yeah.
And once you develop a sound, you're no longer competing for air.
but additionally, you're developing a relationship.
That too.
And for a producer to know, like, Jug, there's no better feeling knowing that, okay, I'm working on this artist alone, and we're gonna create some stuff for this artist. As a producer, it is you end up eating, sleeping, thinking about things that you could do to make this artist pop or make their sound better or big, or just you're familiar with their rhyme tone. You're familiar with their cadence. You're familiar with their tone. So now you're saying, okay, I know this sound or these type of beats work best with this artist. Oh, he would be dope if he sounds like this on this. You start, pulling out all of the tricks, and it's a very um it's a very I would say it's a beautiful situation. It's you get excited. Like, okay, because now you know what to give and what not to give. When you're working with a slew of different artists, and those particular artists, they get beats from everywhere. It's kind of like a crapshoot. You're just giving them whatever, and you're hoping whatever fits to whatever theme they're doing. You don't know. You have no idea.
That's honest, and I don't think people really realize what you just really told them is that where you can concentrate on working with one person at a time, that it creates this situation where you, like you said, like as producers, we're listening for everything, and we're trying to see what's going to marry with this music the best, and what's going to make this stand the test of time. I think that's what folks don't realize what's happening in today's music is today's music isn't really withstanding the test of time. It's because we're into hyper consumption. It's like it just happens so quick, and everything is happening so quick. But the good songs, like especially in the Spotify age, and I call it the streaming age, the songs that are good, man, like, you can listen to a song that's good in the streaming age thousands of times. People don't really realize how often you can listen to your favorite songs in this type of environment if it stands the test of time. And I think that only happens when, to your point, when you lock in. And I think the artists who make the mistake of, okay, you know what, I'm going to take a beat from this guy, a beat from this guy, a beat from this guy, a beat from this guy. And every project just starts to sound different from the last one. I think those are the ones that don't really stand. Those are the ones that tend to kind of, fade out, because it's like the music just seems to be all over the place, and it doesn't seem to have a constant focus.
Right. And on top of that, albums don't have a theme anymore. Projects don't have a theme anymore. And again, I think it goes back to what you're saying when it comes to the streaming age that doesn't focus on albums. It just focuses on that one song. So it kind of pushes everyone just to make a song, but not make an album. Nobody's focusing on a body of work, a collective group of songs. Nobody's, thinking about that. They're just, I'm making a song. Let me slap a couple of songs together, and that's it. That's my album. Which really is a playlist. To be honest with you, it's not an album. You're making a playlist. Not to say that some of the songs by itself aren't great. There's some one-off songs that are called great, that are bangers. My question is, if that song is a banger, why not go to that producer and get more? See what else they got. See what else you can do.
I think that's one of the biggest complaints of, you see, like, for producers like, say, Hit Boy, he always talks about that. Like, okay, he did a record with, like, Roddy Ricch and Nipsey, right?
Mm-hmm.
The record does good, gets a Grammy. He's like, why don't we lock in for more?
Right.
And it's like, I don't understand it. But it goes back to what you're saying about, maybe the relationship, isn't what it needs to be.
Right.
And then sometimes the relationship with the artist and the producer just doesn't click the way it should. Like we may be able to produce something dope, but maybe the vibes just weren't really
Right.
there in terms of personalities,
That happens.
right? It happens a lot because you know, as a producer, you can suggest something. Um, you know, this is where it gets tricky for a lot of up and coming producers that work with established artists. Is that you can suggest something that can bruise an ego,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in a situation where in a lot of cases, if you're working with established artists as a new producer, you don't have a voice. You kind of got to just sit back and got to, you know, go along for the ride because, you know, if you really go out there and you really say what you think about some of this music that may be getting worked on, it may be taken out of context or it may be taken the wrong way where you may, you know, uh, bruise the ego of the artist.
Yeah, folks are sensitive.
Yeah, it's so tricky.
Yeah, yeah. In this era of, you know, dissing in this era is considered disrespect versus, you know, I just disagree, man. That's all it is. It doesn't. It's not. You know, I
Not
don't.
that deep.
It's not that
Yeah.
deep. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I just don't think this works. Let's try this, and that could easily be spun into disrespect and taken out of context, and you know, people get offended, bruise egos, like you said, and it creates a situation where, you know, you may have get lucky and still create a good record, but that artist may not come back.
I remember you specifically one time. This is funny. I remember, you know, we had an artist I was working on a big soundtrack, and they were offering the track came through, and it was a big check for it was a big check for this soundtrack, and song the song the A&R bought the track and it was trash. It was just straight up trash. It was just straight trash. It was chasing the trend and it was going totally against what the artist had already established because
Right.
the artist was already legendary. Right?
Right.
Totally against it. They played a record, boom, 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 and everybody was like, yeah, you know, do. And I just remember you just spazzing and just saying, nah, this is bullshit. This record is not it. This is not the good record, and I don't think you should do this record. Right? But at the time, they were offering the artist maybe 50, 60, in the neighborhood of $100,000 to do the song. So there was really no way to kind of get them out of that situation. But I can remember you voicing that. And then sometimes you would think that being voiced would be, you know, respected that you have a situation. But I don't think the artist took kindly to it. And I think that, you know, that kind of started to kind of fracture that relationship a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is where we talk about those fragile egos. But, you know, it's so funny because I was listening to that song the other day and I was like, boy, did not age well. This is boo. Like, this song did not age well. This song was the beginning of the boo-boo trend. And I was like, this was not it. And I was like, but again, it gets back to that situation where when you're locking in, I think what happens when you're able to lock in appropriately, you can develop a trust.
Right. Yeah. And you're able to speak freely without, you know, the feelings and all this extra stuff because
it's about the music.
Yeah, it's a common goal. Your name's going to be on it. My name's going to be on it.
Yeah.
We both want this thing to go, and we're both passionate about it, and we want to make sure we're putting the best foot forward. And if I see something that looks crazy, I should be able to, as your producer, I should be able to voice it and bring it to your attention and show my concern. You know, especially if I'm rocking with you, I love the music, I'm a fan, you know, and you know, Jug, as a producer, you somewhat gotta be a fan of the music. You gotta be a fan. You gotta, you know,
fan of the artist.
Yeah. You gotta like what they're doing.
Yeah. And I don't think people really realize that. Like, we gotta be a fan of you as the artist, as a person, you know, that's big for us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, it makes us go the extra mile.
Right. And that's the other benefit when you're locking in with a producer that's rocking with you, that likes you. They'll go the extra mile. They'll use their resources to help the project, to help you, to help, you know, knocking some doors. They'll help with some different publications. They'll, you know, use their connections to get into a couple doors, maybe even go get, like, we went and got features for artists. You know, we went the extra mile in a lot of cases. Like, you know what? You know who sound good on this? What you think about so and so? Oh yeah, I've been trying to get to that artist. We got a line. They, you know, they owe us a little favor or something. We'll get them on the record.
That's how it works. It's supposed to be that way because, you know, again, it's like that's the whole point of getting with the producers is that it's not for you to get the sound, but also for them to orchestrate the records.
Right.
You know, this is us trying to put together the best, you know, collection of music. And back to your other point when you were saying that artists aren't really making albums, I think you're right when you say, hey, we shouldn't be talking about it in terms of albums. We should be talking about it in terms of playlisting. Right, collections of songs. Right, because I don't want to say album anymore. I think album is an antiquated phrase versus us saying, hey, we want to put together a good collection of songs. Right, which is basically another way of saying album, but without saying album, or a collection of singles. And even if you have the right producer, again, you can put together a set of cohesive singles that follow up each other, that keep getting bigger and better and bigger and better, you know.
Right.
Because again, we would know what it takes to outdo that previous song. Or if you have a good producer and or A&R or something like that who understands the dynamics of what albums normally do, where you normally have this song or you have this intros that start off this way and then it slowly builds up and then it kind of crescendos and then it slowly starts to kind of get into what it needs to get into and then it ends with this big finale. And I think people who make the classic albums or people who have been parts of making classic albums understand those dynamics and putting those songs together and kind of telling the story of the artist and kind of the arc of the artist. Those things are missing, you know, and it's missing in today's music a lot. But the ones that still kind of practice it are the ones that are still around, and they're going to be around for a generation. You got to realize that hip hop is turning 50, and there are some artists that are still out here 20, 30 years later doing way bigger numbers than, you know, the artists that are, you know, quote unquote, you know, the biggest right now. So that's a testament to something.
Yeah. You know, I think you know, it shouldn't be said lightly. There's something to locking in with a producer, creating a relationship, you know, bonding, vibing with each other, and really understanding. As a producer, you know, you would get a chance to understand the artist that you're working with. You understand their journey, you understand their path, where they came from, or what they're trying to do. You know, there's certain intimate moments that allows you to say, you know what, I got something for this. I feel your struggle. I know what you're going through. As a matter of fact, I went through something like that. You know, I got the perfect intro to lay that out. You know, so building a relationship with an artist, locking in, is beneficial. It's beneficial for your career, beneficial for longevity. You know, if Dr. Dre and Snoop put out a record tomorrow, everybody will be, we gotta hear what this sounds like. We gotta hear what this sounds like. You know, if you know, Future and Metro drop something tomorrow, everybody be running to check it out. Like, okay, well, what does this sound like? You know, there's something to be said about when producers lock in with the artists and they create magic.
It's funny you say that because of that whole like this Hit Boy and Nas run.
Yeah.
It's like it's unprecedented.
You know what's funny, Jug? Uh, On another note, man, if the producer gives the artist the right thing, it could really allow the artist to sound like they've never sounded before, even better, or bring back a feeling that they may have lost along the way. Like Nas sounds great. He doesn't sound quote unquote old school, you know. And I'm like, wow, this guy is sounding really hungry, and on certain records, he's really rapping, and yeah, we know Nas is the great, but there's also a lot of other artists that came from that generation that are great, but don't necessarily can hang in some, context with today because of the way music has went and the style, but woo,
I really like that. I like that connection, and I wish that more of our legacy artists would do it that way.
yeah,
Would go and would say, you know what? Let me let me lock in and stretch what I'm used to doing and collaborating with this producer who may be of a different generation, right? Who may
mhm,
be young enough to be your child, right?
right,
Like in this type of situation, but it's like at the same time, it's like, you know, let's see what we create,
right,
and in this particular situation, it let out a whole bunch of albums that that were really solid albums. The one thing that I would ask is that people say, oh, they may not be as good as the other albums, and I may say, hey, the reason why you may feel that way is because the other albums had probably more visuals that were attached to them, and the visuals tend to cement a record into your mind in terms of like, hey, if you got a Street Dreams, or if you got I Rule the World, or if just different videos. And I think in this situation they were just trying to make music and they weren't really concerned about promoting it in that kind of fashion. But like if you see like a Metro right now, if he was to get with, let's say for example, you know, just off the top of my head, maybe a Busta Rhymes,
hmm,
you know, what does
that's
that sound like?
what does that sound like? Yeah. That's
Like,
well,
what does that
that's
sound like?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that sound like with somebody who knows how to make a record
Right.
on any type of beat? What does that sound like? So that's the thing that I think is missing. Again, like just locking in and just kind of you know don't look at it for anything more than just creating something new.
Right.
Like
Get out the
we're not
box.
in we're not in the era where it's like, oh, everything has to be driven by sales. Like, these guys didn't care about any sales.
Yeah. Especially
You know?
especially if you've been around for quite a while and you're already solidified.
Yeah.
It's a great time to just be super creative. You don't have to follow the quote unquote trends. Be the trend.
I think they said LL has locked in with Q-Tip, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm interested in seeing how that plays out.
You know what's interesting? He said originally he locked in with Dr. Dre.
I heard that too. That was
Um, and that's interesting. And I guess it didn't really work out. But the fact that, because sometimes you lock in and it may not work out, you know. So, but what I did appreciate is the fact that he tried something different from different coasts. And, who knows? Maybe it is hot and it's just other situations that's not allowing that to come forward. But
not for nothing though. When you think about LL, and it was so funny because I think I went on a recent road trip with the family, and his music had came up because I was just kind of going through some older stuff, and his projects that when he had locked in with Molly Mall are like really epic, like like the like
Marty, man.
like the stuff that this guy was creating, where like he's really one of the goats. Like I don't think people really want to give him a lot of credit, but for somebody who took a lot of risk in making love songs, a lot of
Oh
risk
yeah,
in doing this
yeah.
party music, just he
A
just
lot of risk.
really
I
this
Need
guy
Love.
really pushed the envelope.
When he did I Need Love, it was like, huh? You sure?
Yeah.
But that was a way out the box.
Yeah. This guy really pushed the envelope and really created the blueprint that, that people just didn't understand, man. Like they didn't understand it, but then when you listen to it and some of the stuff that you listen to it back, if you listen to it now sonically, you're like, how did they get it to sound like that? And like it really is like it really stands the test of time. And I think people just have to kind of understand like that's really what the whole purpose is of really picking a producer and creating a sound. When you don't have to compete with anybody for your sound, like that is like you find like a golden lane that you can just grow in, and you can have that career that lasts 20, 30, 40 years.
I
You
think
know,
I think also Jug is what's dope is when you come out with a project like that and everybody flocks to it. You have that producer, you could always, for the next project, we're gonna switch it up. Not everybody wanna do this. Let's switch it up. Let's find something new together. You as a producer, you as an artist, and you come together and you kind of hype each other back up again. Like we're gonna it's like starting over. We're gonna do something new and fresh. You know. Um I think that's dope, man. And I think that's needed. We're not being more we're not being creative, enough in this business. That's what I'm really, really seeing. Like it's not enough creativity. There's not a lot of out the box. I'm gonna try something else. Everything is the same old. And I get it. I get it. I get everybody is, swapping packs and, beat packs, and everybody's, sharing and beats and joint production, 10 people on the beat,
it's
um,
crazy.
I get it, man. And everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants their project to come out because competition is so thick and everybody wants to eat. But we gotta, and I'll always say, man, creativity wins. Creativity always wins. Do something else.
I'm gonna go back out. I'm gonna go back out on a limb and say, Mike, we don't need creativity. We got artificial intelligence. We don't need
Yeah,
we don't
but
need creativity. We got artificial intelligence. We got
when
AI, bro.
artificial intelligence is gonna just continue manufacturing the same old, they're gonna take what's working and what's popular, and it's gonna spit that same thing out over and over again until do something different. So again, you're gonna have to be creative. You're gonna have to be creative to get around that.
It's real. It's real. I don't really I don't disagree with you when you say that. Like that's really what the situation is in this day and age. It's like, hey, like that's the whole point, like you said, of locking in. And that's really the pros. And I think there's not many many cons to it, especially if you pick the right producer to block in with, because again, what you're doing is you're developing your sound. Number two, you're developing a relationship.
Hmm.
Three, you have access to resources that you might not necessarily have.
Right.
Four, you might have access to more networking and more promotion opportunities. So
Absolutely.
it's like really a big amount of pros that come along with doing so. And I just wish more artists would do that and, start thinking a little bit more on a longer scale and versus just trying to get what's happening now. I think we have gotten to the point where everything needs to just be, oh my goodness, I have to follow the trend versus, creating your own trend.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what the problem is.
I think what would be really dope for hip hop is collaboration projects, meaning, okay, this artist is produced solely by this producer for this project. And then maybe for the next project, you do another producer for that sound, for a different sound. I think something like that also would stretch your reach. You don't always have to do the same, the project after project with the same producer. You could say, okay, I'm going to do this project like with Q-Tip, but the next project I'm doing with Metro. You know what I'm saying? And then the project after that I'm doing with Dr. Dre, and the next project I'm doing with Southside, or the next project I'm doing with so forth and so on.
That's but that's the whole thing. I think producers don't come for us in the comments either talking about, hey, if they're locking in with one guy, we don't get any work. Like, listen, this is how you advance the culture, man. And this is how you continue to keep the long-term gravy train going. I think if the music as a whole starts to become very stagnant, then what you'll start to find out is that you start to have less opportunities, because what happens is your music, the genre overall, it will start slipping, and that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent the genre from losing, its stranglehold on the industry.
We all need inspiration, and inspiration is the driving force behind creativity. If you're not inspired, you're not going to be able to create. So we have to take that and really make sure that, okay, we value that. We got to make sure that we protect that. If we don't have inspiration, we're just going to keep coming out year after year with the same old, and it's not doing anything for the culture. It's just slowing us down, like you said.
But that's what the algorithm wants. The AI wants us to slow down. It's the Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast, folks.
The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I don't want to even go there. But there are a whole bunch of AI stuff that I wanted to talk about on our next one. But it's getting crazy out here now. It's starting to get real crazy looking. But that's another conversation for another day.
Even if you're going to use AI, don't lose out on your creativity. Be creative in how you're going to use it.
That's real. It's real. That's real. Definitely. That's definitely the situation. So just for everyone.
Not before you go off, you mentioned Marley Marl. Man, give that man his props, man. Marley Marl does not get the things he did with that SP. Like, and it goes back to creativity. It goes back to, like, you got to remember that drum machine had only 12 seconds of sampling time, 14 seconds of sampling time, something like that.
Maybe less.
And for the whole machine, and for you to be able to create what you create, with those limitations, that is creativity.
These are some of the, I would challenge everybody to go back and, just turn on, say, Jingling Baby. Play that in your car real quick, turn it up loud, and you tell me how much music sounds like that right now. You won't be able to, you be like, man, like, where's this low end coming from? It's incredible, between that, changes, the switch ups, it's just.
I love these videos of, like, some of this generation listening or watching YouTube videos
of the old stuff.
Yeah, their reaction.
First reaction, like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just so crazy. Like, when you see it, like,
like the first time Onyx running across that hill.
Oh shit! That changed that changed a lot of people's lives, man.
But what's interesting? A lot of this new generation is getting inspiration from a lot of those old records, because even this Scarlett, she her record back up, like, she had Onyx in the joint. I was like, oh, this feels like some old
I didn't realize that, but when you say it now,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that is
Uh,
Onyx.
Yes, Onyx. And I was like,
I like that.
yo, this is hard. You know, this is
What
New
you,
York, and
what you think about Scarlett, man? What's your take on it? Because I think we should do more of that too. We should do more of that. Like we hear a song and we should be like, all right,
oh,
like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this new artist coming from New York? Do you think it's the right lane that they're choosing to push her in? Like, what do you think it's too aggressive? Do you think it's short lived? Like,
she
like
reminds
I like to look at it from a longevity standpoint, right? That's how I always like to look at artists. But I know some artists just ain't built that way, So, what's your take on it? And
I mean, the funny thing is that I have said things online of certain clips that I've seen, and a lot of people agreed. She has it feels like she comes from a DMX Onyx kind of clause, and she's been through a lot. Her story is
her story,
is
it's crazy.
rough. It's rough. She has a rough upbringing, so for her it makes sense for that music, the anger, the pain, all those things she's been through, for her to be putting it out there, and at the same time, her being humbled with when these opportunities are presenting themselves, and being emotional and being transparent. Like, you get to see a lot of these things, and when you're an artist displaying all of those things and being genuine, people gravitate to you. So yeah, her music is aggressive, but I just think that she has room for a lot of growth. She has room for a lot of lanes because of all the things she's been through. And it feels like a little bit like DMX. And as you know, DMX had different lanes and different things going on. So, I wish her well, man. Like, I want to see her grow. I want to see her win.
I agree with that. I think that if she's channeling DMX, right, and like how you say, like like you said, DMX was like, to me, had different lanes in this situation where he could, he can do the "get at me, dog," and then do "I'm slipping,"
right?
So it's again, like you said, trying to take everything that happened to her and taking that story and trying to deliver that in the best music that you can deliver.
Right.
And then I think in that type of situation, then it remains authentic to who she is, and just making sure that she's delivering it.
And it's standing out. It's standing out.
Yeah.
It don't sound like what's on the radio right now. Like, it stands out, and that's what we're going back to, just being creative. Like there's nothing wrong with taking a bit and piece and inspiration from others, but then take that and add your own thing to it and make it something totally different. So yeah, it has a feeling of some of those artists that we spoke about, the Onyx, the DMX, but it's totally like repackaged, just totally something else.
I think her current situation is with Swiss, right? I think they just did something with Epic. So
I know Swiss was moving her stuff around.
Was to involved with it. So shout out to them. Just keep your keep your eyes on the prize, man, and don't get distracted out here, and just like like you said, like, she has a story that I think if we stick to that, and if we kind of are able to channel that emotion and channel that story into music the right way, that you can kind of create a long career out of it, especially as you start to evolve. Now, we know what that story is. We know what that pain is. Now, just remember, as you start to evolve as an artist, start to get money and the new challenges that start to happen, don't forget to kind of channel that in. And I think that's what kind of gives Drake the good longevity, is because he was able to always talk about different stages of his life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the artists that are able to eloquently do that are the ones, the J. Coles, and the ones that just seem to be able to stand a good test of time. Kendrick. It's like, talk about different as your life progresses.
Right. What you're dealing with, the issue you have right now.
Right now. and being able to put that into and channel that in. Even with Dirk right now, Dirk's new project is showing that growth and is channeling what's happening to him right now, how he's dealing with the losses, everything, channeling that into the music, and people are responding to it really well. Like this is how you create legacy, people. We're giving you the blueprint right now. Like this is how you do it. This is how you create a long-standing career in the music business, is to be able to eloquently talk about where you are currently. You know, you can't just continue to talk about what it was when you was broke. Like Big used to say, I'm not broke no more.
Right.
Like we got to talk about something else. So, you know, shout out to everybody that's following us. Shout out to everybody that's, you know, rocking with Arkatech Beatz and rocking with the podcast. If you haven't already, you know, gotten the books that we got out right now, the Songwriter's Guide to Song Registration, that is absolutely free for you to make sure that your songs are being registered and monetized. If you haven't already gotten the Ultimate Guide to Forming Your Own Music LLC, and then also the Musician's Guide to Music Copyrights, those are available now. Make sure that you're getting those, and make sure that you're stepping up your music game and your music business game, so that you can protect and monetize your music.
And mailing stuff to yourself like copyrights, it's not gonna hold up.
Yeah, I can see. Listen, I don't want us to be flippant about it, but it's something that I keep seeing in our comments, and it just seems to keep being this recurring situation where people believe that, hey, if I mail it to myself, that is sufficient because I put it in a tangible form. It's sufficient, but it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient to protect you in a way that you need if you want to sue for damages.
And to be clear, we're talking about copyrights.
Copyright. To be clear, if you want to sue, or if somebody steals your music and you want to take legal action, you cannot take any legal action until your songs are appropriately registered through copyright.gov.
That's it.
That's period, point blank.
You're not gonna walk into no courtroom or something with an envelope in your hand and say, "Hey, I mailed this to myself."
They won't even allow you to take it to court. You registering the song is a prerequisite to any legal action. All right, please stop. Please, if you're putting them in the comments and you're trying to mislead our listeners and our viewers, you know, at first I wanted to kind of go back and forth to kind of see if we can educate, but if we're giving you the resource and you're still putting out that information, then that means that all you're looking to do is just to mislead the folks, and we're just going to wind up having to delete the situation. It's like, it doesn't make any sense for me to go back and forth. It's like, obviously I'm giving you a resource. You don't want that resource. You want to do something else. Like, you know, you have your own platform for that. I'm not going to lie to you.
And Jug is free.
Well, that one's not, but
the registration, the other book, the thing.
Right. Like the guide to songwriters registration is free, and it highlights that.
Right.
You know, now if you want more information on the guides to copyright, we have something else for that as well. But you have to be willing to open yourself up to the resources so that you can learn appropriately. You know, and what I don't like is, okay, we're putting these things into the comments, and when you put these things into the comments, you mislead other readers or other people that may be looking in the situation. So please, if we're offering the resources, you know, if you want to talk about the contents of our resource, that's a different topic, right? If you want to say, hey, I don't understand this, how does this work? That's different. Right. Or for you to blatantly put in misleading information and say, hey, you know, listen, we're not going back and forth with that.
And it comes from people with no experience, of the people with no credits to their name, no anything. Who are you to say this? You have
this is no internet. This is the internet. The internet basically says that anybody can see anything. So, you know, this is where we are.
That's it. That's all I got. That's all I got, man.
Everybody, thank you for listening. Hopefully by next week I won't be under the weather. But you know, thanks everybody for listening, and you know, make sure you like, commenting, and subscribing. And until next time,
Peace.
peace, everybody.
Arkatech